You can't just walk away from our HOA. I'm calling the police right now. Barbara Harrington was standing in my driveway, phone already pressed to her ear, her voice sharp enough to cut through the quiet afternoon. All because I had filed perfectly legal paperwork to withdraw from the Homeowners Association. In California, it's allowed, plain and simple. To her, it was some kind of betrayal. She was still shouting orders into the phone when the sheriff's cruiser pulled up. The deputy stepped out, removed his sunglasses slowly, and Barbara whirled around with a triumphant smirk. "Officer, that's him right there. Arrest him for abandoning his obligations and violating community standards." Her words trailed off. Her pointing finger froze in midair, mouth hanging open, face draining of color. Because the man in uniform staring her down was my son, Ryan, a sergeant with the county sheriff's department. The silence hung heavy. What would you do if a nosy, power-hungry neighbor called the law on you for something completely legal, only to have your own son show up in uniform to answer the call? Let me take you back to the beginning and tell you how I ended up in the middle of this nightmare. My name is Harold Jenkins. I'm 58 now, retired after 35 years as a pipe fitter with the local union. Life was good until 4 years ago when my wife, Ellen, lost her long battle with breast cancer. We had bought our house in Oak Ridge Meadows about 12 years earlier, mainly because she wanted a calm neighborhood with a community pool where she could sit and relax during her treatments. Back then, the HOA felt like a plus. Well-kept common areas, a gated entrance, security patrols. Ellen loved those evenings by the pool, watching the sunset ripple across the water, the faint smell of chlorine mixing with the jasmine vines along the fence. Those moments became some of her most peaceful. After she passed, the house just felt too big, too quiet, too full of echoes. Our son Ryan, 31 and a sheriff's sergeant in the next county over, kept nudging me to downsize. "Dad, you're rattling around in there like a lost soul," he'd say during our Sunday dinners. He joined law enforcement because he truly wanted to protect people, an old-school notion in today's world. He lives about 45 minutes away, in his own jurisdiction, which turned out to matter a great deal later on. Then Barbara Harrington moved into the neighborhood 5 years ago, and our little slice of suburbia turned into something else entirely. Imagine a 54-year-old high-end real estate agent driving a pearl-white Lexus that she hand-washes every weekend like it's a religious ritual. The kind of woman who patrols the streets with a ruler to measure grass height and views it as her personal mission to uphold civilization. Within months, she was campaigning for HOA president on promises of protecting property values and enforcing standards. In reality, it meant turning the place into her personal fiefdom. Her shrill voice echoing across lawns during her self-appointed inspections became the soundtrack of our days. She targeted the vulnerable, widows and widowers, older couples, anyone who didn't fit her polished ideal. The Millers got endless complaints about their vegetable garden. The Garcias were hounded over their kids' driveway basketball hoop. Mrs. Whitaker received violation notices for rose beds that had graced her yard for 2 decades. But I became her prime target, the grieving widower who dared to live quietly without seeking her approval. About 8 months after Ellen's funeral, I decided I'd had enough. I wanted out from under Barbara's constant oversight. No more worrying about exact shade of mailbox paint or how many days my project truck could sit in the driveway. That's when I discovered a key piece of California law. I spent several days at the county law library poring over statutes and found that Civil Code Section 4145 allows a homeowner to withdraw from an HOA with 30 days written notice, provided there are no valid liens or unpaid assessments. I followed every step meticulously, certified mail, proper forms, the works. Barbara wasted no time responding. 3 days after I filed, she showed up at my door with her clipboard and that thin, superior smile. "Harold, I'm afraid your backyard garden violates our aesthetic guidelines. You'll need to remove it immediately or face escalating fines." That garden was Ellen's last project, rows of tomatoes and herbs she tended in her final good summer. The thought of ripping it out for some arbitrary rule made my blood boil. "The garden stays," I said flatly. "We'll see about that," she replied, jotting notes like a courtroom stenographer. 2 weeks later, a certified letter arrived demanding $2,300 in made-up withdrawal processing fees, fees that appeared nowhere in our original covenants. Then another letter claiming an ongoing monthly emergency assessment, retroactive to the day I filed my notice. I could smell the fraud from across the kitchen table. So I headed back to the county clerk's office and started pulling every HOA document on file. That's where I met Agnes Miller, 75, retired legal secretary from a big downtown firm, tough as nails and twice as smart. She'd been quietly building a file on Barbara for years. She slid a thick folder across the table. Same tricks she pulled on folks in her last neighborhood, forcing sales, driving people out. But she's sloppy. No proper votes on those fees, no filings with the county. We confirmed it. Any new assessment needed 67% homeowner approval and official recording, none of which Barbara had bothered with. I filed a formal complaint requesting a full financial audit, and Agnes helped me draft it bulletproof. Quiet conversations started spreading among neighbors. Doubt has a way of growing when people realize they're not alone. Barbara didn't take it lying down. One morning I returned from the grocery store to an empty driveway. My 1979 Chevy pickup, the classic I'd been restoring piece by piece in memory of Saturday garage days with Ellen, was gone. A neighbor came running over. Tow truck took it. Driver said it was reported abandoned, an eyesore. I paid $480 to spring it from impound, plus storage fees. The truck fired up on the first crank, ran smoother than most new vehicles. That crossed a line. Messing with a man's project truck, full of decades of memories. The smell of oil, Ellen's laughter echoing in the garage. That makes it personal. Barbara's next tactic was a cease and desist letter taped prominently on my front door, accusing me of illegal spying with my security cameras. The cameras were basic, facing only my property, installed after some of Ellen's things went missing during the estate sale. I brought in Daniel Garcia, 35, cybersecurity expert who works for a tech firm and lives 4 houses down. He reviewed everything and confirmed. Completely legal, no expectation of privacy on someone else's land. He upgraded the system, motion-activated, high-resolution, cloud storage. Within 48 hours, we had footage of Barbara circulating lies, that I was mentally unstable since Ellen's death, that my yard was tanking property values. We caught her offering a contractor cash to file bogus complaints about unpermitted structures. Neighbors began gathering in my garage over coffee. Stories came out. The Millers, the Garcias, Mrs. Whitaker. We formed a quiet alliance of the fed up. Barbara called a city building inspector with claims of code violations on my cameras. The inspector checked thoroughly and ruled everything compliant. He quietly mentioned they'd logged multiple false reports from the same address lately. That gave us official documentation of a harassment pattern. Barbara went nuclear. She filed for a temporary restraining order, swearing under oath that I'd threatened her personally at an HOA meeting. She twisted a general comment about accountability into something menacing. But Daniel's cameras and multiple witnesses captured the truth exactly. Agnes connected me with Margaret Whitaker, no relation to our neighbor, a fierce attorney specializing in harassment who takes cases pro bono for seniors and public servants. Margaret reviewed our evidence pile, videos, documents, witness statements. Barbara committed perjury filing that order. That's felony territory. We filed our own restraining order against her, detailing the trespassing, false reports, harassment. The neighborhood tide turned. People who'd suffered in silence started speaking up. Then the audit results landed like a bombshell. $54,000 missing from reserves, paid to Barbara's shell consulting company for non-existent services. Records showed she'd pulled the same scam in her previous community. We took the whole package to the district attorney's white-collar unit. Barbara's final desperate spiral included fake social media accounts spreading lies about me, attempted bribes, more false 911 calls, even feeding fabricated stories to local news. Every move backfired, adding charges. We set a honey trap payment that lured her into processing another fraudulent deposit on camera. At the emergency HOA meeting to remove her, with news cameras rolling, Barbara tried one last ploy, dialing 911 claiming an angry mob was threatening her. The responding deputy was Ryan, my son. She demanded he arrest me. Ryan surveyed the room. Embezzlement evidence projected large, a detective with cuffs ready, neighbors united, reporters filming. "Ma'am, you just committed another false report in front of dozens of witnesses. The detective stepped forward. Barbara Harrington, you're under arrest for grand theft, organized fraud, filing false police reports, perjury, attempted bribery, and related charges. The click of handcuffs in that clubhouse, in front of everyone who'd endured her reign, was pure satisfaction. For months later, Barbara accepted a plea: 20 months in state prison, full restitution of $81,000 including damages, permanent revocation of her real estate license, 5 years supervised probation. Agnes was elected interim president. She implemented open books, independent audits, and eliminated every bogus fee Barbara invented. Monthly dues dropped nearly 40%. The neighborhood changed overnight. No more petty citations, no more fear. Gardens bloomed, kids played, project vehicles sat proudly in driveways. We used recovered funds to establish the Ellen Jenkins Memorial Scholarship for local students pursuing careers in public service or criminal justice. Ellen would have loved knowing her memory helps young people protect others. One stand against a bully can ripple out and shield an entire community. Sometimes justice is slow, but when ordinary folks band together with facts and patience, it prevails. Now I want to hear from you. When you've faced real injustice, whether from a neighbor, a boss, an institution, or the system itself, do you believe it's ever justified to push back hard, even if it means getting tough? Or should we always stay strictly by the book no matter the cost? Where do you draw the line between standing up for what's right and crossing into vigilante territory? Share your stories and your honest opinions below. I read every single comment, and some of them are more compelling than anything I've lived through. Let's discuss it openly. What does true justice look like in everyday life?